War. War never changes. Okay, cheesy video game references aside, let's have a little talk about everybody's favorite totalitarian country, North Korea. Recently, there have been relatively uneasy interactions between the US and North Korea regarding North Korea's recent nuclear tests and their capabilities therein. I'm not saying we're going to wake up to the Fallout universe tomorrow, but the fact that Kim Jong-un is brave enough to jab at the US, even while his best ally China is perched on his shoulder squawking, this isn't the best idea you've had, Kim, is a point that speaks more about how Kim Jong-un really thinks and acts, as though we weren't already clued into the fact he's a little nutty. And just going into the fact that, well, quite literally his regime is based off of, imprisoning people, murdering political dissidents, and a number of other shady acts. But that notwithstanding, let's move on. Now, North Korea's longest-reaching missile, although untested, has a range of about 11,500 kilometers, or 7,145 miles. The mileage is slightly not exactly accurate because it's rounded, but it's within that range, which is more than capable of hitting the mainland United States. They also have a series of other missiles, their smallest being the Hwasong. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I frankly don't care, which has a range of about 621 miles. So North Korea is more than capable of hitting not only mainland United States, but also their neighbors and our allies, South Korea. With that being said, the main target, of course, would be Seoul, the capital of South Korea. Aside from the nuclear attacks on South Korea, Japan isn't much safer, as missiles such as the Musudan, I don't know if I can pronounce it, Musudan, anyway, is more than capable of hitting Japan in other areas outside of just North Korea's neighbor, South Korea. Even the aforementioned Hwasong is somewhat of a threat to Japan if the technology were improved and the distance it can be launched were to increase. Now, with that being said, both Japan and South Korea are our allies, and due to a treaty, if they were to be attacked in any way, shape, or form, not even necessarily nuclear, by North Korea, we do have to get involved. So that is always kind of a looming threat in of itself, but moving on. Despite the capability of strikes on our allies, and ourselves included, there are still a few things to consider. For example, planning a military campaign is a difficult task to undertake, sometimes requiring months, if not years, of planning. Winning a war isn't as easy or as simple as just killing the enemy. It's about completely destroying the infrastructure and leadership that holds everything together. With that being said, this also means that North Korea isn't able to attack us on the drop of a dime based off of the same logic. Well, at least a well-mannered tactician wouldn't make that senseless of a decision. But, as I've said before, Kim Jong-un is a little unhinged. Well, he's crazy to a lot of people. But, that being said, am I saying he's dropping the bombs tomorrow? No. But it should be pointed out that while China is looming over his shoulder, I wouldn't put it past him to be a little rash at times and to make somewhat of a rash decision, whether or not that be split second or, within a couple of days, 48, 72 hours or whatever. Anyway, all of this came to light when North Korea produced what looked like a miniaturized nuclear device that can supposedly fit inside of its missiles, passing yet another threshold and becoming a nuclear power. That being the possibility of making a multi-staged intercontinental ballistic missile, which basically means that instead of just simply launching through basic atmospheric conditions, it actually exits the atmosphere and then drops back in at a much farther distance. This, for example, allowing them to hit pretty much anywhere within the United States that they want, including the capital, D.C. Now, this is all hypothetical, and it's just a little device that they showed off. It's not even well known whether or not it's actually nuclear. So, keep that in mind. After this, there was a response by President Trump, in short, stating that if push came to shove and it led to the inevitability of war, we would end them them being North Korea and and Fury and Fire. Now, under pressure from Trump and probably others, further sanctions were put on North Korea, more or less dropping North Korea's income to about 1/3 of what they normally have. Now, Kim Jong-un is, as I said before, he's nuts. So taking 1/3 of his paycheck away from him gives him plenty of incentive to do something that might have been deemed originally out of the ordinary entirely. But like I said, I don't think a nuclear strike's going to happen tomorrow. So moving on from that. Now, with that 1/3 of a decrease, or that 1/3 of the paycheck that they're originally making, North Korea has been sending tens of thousands of impoverished citizens to Russia and possibly other nearby countries to work in these countries and send their money back to North Korea, mainly because of North Korea's need for foreign money to fund their government and their nuclear programs. Now, with that being said, North Korea isn't exactly the most fertile country, considering, on top of the fact that it's a totalitarian communist country, a lot of the stuff has been nationalized, and a lot of their resources go into the government, and therefore they don't have a lot of export. And the things that they rely on for export are mainly minerals and ores that they export to their neighbor to the north, China. And China has put sanctions on them, so a lot of their income is decreased. So, mainly because of this, the reason to send the workers out, on top of the ones that they've been doing this for a while, so this not only gives them incentive to do it more often, but also to take more money off of the impoverished workers that send more or less about 90% of their paycheck to North Korea as it is. Now, moving on, not necessarily from that, but to another part of it, some estimates say that upwards of 50,000 North Korean workers are in Russia, sending back $120 million, mind you, dollars, not rubles, $120 million in wages back to North Korea. So not only is North Korea threatening us and our allies with war, but they're also taking money from other countries, Russia being one of our allies, whether or not we have a shaky relationship with them now as it is, but taking money from them and using it to fund their nuclear programs on top of the regime that runs everything. So I can understand why there's a certain animosity in the world towards this totalitarian regime, and quite frankly, it's been apparent to most people that it's not necessarily the nicest place to live. Now, in closing, do I think that North Korea is going to drop a nuke on our dongs tomorrow? No. But this is, of course, a clear indication of Kim's objective. As their technology increases, the chances of them trying to strong-arm South Korea and essentially take it over, reuniting the Korean Peninsula, is, without a doubt, not even just Kim Jong-un, but North Korea's intention altogether. Now, with these sanctions on North Korea and the increasing costs of not only keeping his regime going and his nuclear programs going forward, Kim will be left with a few options. Either A, decrease the nuclear program to keep the regime running, aka take money out of the nuclear programs and take that money they took out of the nuclear programs and apply it to the economy so that you don't have mass riots because you don't have the food. Not like their citizens are armed to riot to begin with, but that's a subject for another time. Or B, find a pressure release valve by sending more workers out of the country to other foreign countries to send foreign money back into the country. Or C, finding a pressure release valve in the way of war. C being the worst of the worst. And also, I remain a little leery of a number of these news stories in regards to North Korea's capabilities as far as how far they can reach, what the capabilities of nuclear warheads are, seeing mainly because CNN and Fox are reporting what seems to be the same story. And, well, when Fox and CNN kind of agree, that's when things should really be held to a very high standard. And that goes without saying. Any other time, you should always take any news article with a grain of salt. But considering the opposite ends of the news spectrum, as they were, Fox and CNN are agreeing, is something you should not just take a grain of salt. You should swallow the whole damn bottle and move on with your life. Not necessarily move on with your life, but look at this with very, very skeptical glasses. Now, with that being said, this video will be up, well, I'm hoping tonight, as I'm recording this, is Thursday, and, well, I'm hoping to have everything done and have it up tonight, but if not, it will be up Friday after I get out of work. So let me know what you think of the new format, and I will see you guys next Tuesday. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, and or night, and I will see you later.